Hi everyone, my name is Kasia Westwood and I'm a contract performance manager at FreeSC. Welcome to November FreeSC Member Spotlight. Today I welcome Tony Adamson. Tony is a coach who helps charity managers manage stress, avoid burnout and reconnect to their values and purpose. He's lived what he's going to talk about today. Overworking and neglecting his well-being, chronic stress, ineffective boundaries, work-life imbalance, exhaustion, illness, loss of purpose, and burnout. He worked in third sector for over 25 years, 20 of these years as a senior manager, and in March this year, he took voluntary redundancy and now works full-time as a coach and is a brilliant coach on one of the contracts that I manage. So I truly recommend your service. We're really happy working with you, Tony. Welcome.
Hi, Kasia. Good to be here.
Thank you for joining. So I'm going to start with a basic question. What is stress? Why we feel stress and what is going on in our brains when we are stressed?
Yeah, and this sort of gets to the heart of the issue, really. I think when we talk about why people may want sort of some support around stress. So stress, as we kind of experience it, is really something that is a hangover from our sort of evolutionary past. So when we kind of lived, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of years ago, our stress response, or what we call sort of fight flight, is something that kept us alive. It was a survival mechanism that
So it's
enabled us
quite
to.
natural to a person to feel stressed.
Absolutely, it's something that is absolutely hardwired into our brains. It's there from when we're born, and it's everybody has a stress response. It's the fight flight. It's that response to a threat, or what we perceive as a threat.
So that's what happens to the brain, is just that natural sort of reaction to how we feel and what we are experiencing.
It's what we're experiencing, and it's specifically it's when we experience that there's a threat to us, or there's danger of some description. Obviously, in our evolutionary past, that danger was usually the difference between life and death.
Yeah.
You were going to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, let's say.
Yeah.
Today, our stress response is triggered by much more, everyday kind of things that we encounter at work or in our lives more generally.
So how do you know you are stressed?
Well, this in my experience, this varies. That there are similarities across people, but your response to stress is your response to stress. That what triggers stress for you is going to be different to what triggers stress for somebody else. So usually, you might have a response to stress. Your heart might beat faster. You might feel anxious. You might have something in, get a tightness here. You could get a headache or migraine, or you could lose sleep. So there's physical a response to stress, the emotional response to stress. You may feel angry, you may feel sad, you may feel frustrated. You can have a sort of more like a cognitive response to stress, where in terms of your mindset, oh, I can't do this, I'm just going to give up, what's the point?
Like demotivation and
lack
of wanting to do something.
Procrastination. You may start just putting stuff off.
And I think we've all done it. I think we've all done it, especially when we were under pressure of deadlines and needing to do something that we might not necessarily like doing, or that is stressing us out.
And the other thing about stress is it's although we feel stress, you've got to understand that a lot of what triggers that stress is unconscious.
Mm.
We're not aware of, usually, we're just not aware of what's actually happened, what's triggered it. There's physical, so adrenaline and cortisol,
Mm.
the stress hormones are released into our bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
Adrenaline particularly, because our bodies are preparing us to flee.
Yeah, that's right.
So our heart rate increases, our eyes dilate, so
Mm-hmm.
our vision knows. Acute stress, so we're designed to feel like acute
Mm-hmm.
stress, because it's like, now I need to escape, I need to get out of here, I
That's
need to
right.
do whatever. What we're talking about, which creates a problem, is longer term chronic
So chronic, yeah, yeah.
stress that goes on for a long time.
And I guess with the chronic stress, that can lead to burnout, and that's something that you talk a lot about.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit more about that. How does it happen that the chronic stress leads to burnout?
Well, burnout, although the word has kind of existed and since the 1970s, burnout wasn't officially recognized until 2019. So the World Health Organization didn't
Really,
actually,
that's quite late, isn't it?
yeah, didn't actually categorize it as a thing until
Mm-hmm.
2019. And it's essentially, burnout is what happens when is long-term chronic stress that isn't adequately managed.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about acute stress,
Mm-hmm.
that's actually quite helpful. It's adaptive. It's
Yeah.
about survival, and our bodies then return back from that stressful state quite quickly. Long-term chronic stress, when you get stress, which is just kind of like low level, but it's there over a
Continuous,
much
yeah.
longer period of time. Adrenaline, cortisol, those stress hormones build up in our bodies, and it depletes our resources, our
Mm-hmm.
physical and mental resources over a period of time. So when we talk about burnout, what we're actually talking about is just unmanaged stress
Okay.
that's gone on and on and on and on and on for a
Mm-hmm.
long time, and it gets to the point where our resources are basically just depleted to such an
That's right.
extent that,
So how can you avoid it? How can you avoid burning out?
to avoid burning out, you've got to manage stress. If you manage your stress, then you're not going to burn out, because
Mm-hmm.
burnout is just stress that is unmanaged. So understanding in the moment, every day, just when you feel stress, because it's what's actually happening in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
What's caused it? What's triggered it? What's the environment you're in?
Mm.
What are the demands placed on you? Because stress is kind of defined as just when we feel the situation we're in, the demands of the situation exceeds our ability to cope with
That's
it.
right.
So there's a gap, and that is
Mm-hmm.
stress. Is that I can't cope with this situation,
Yeah.
so we become stressed. And then it's understanding your own personal triggers for stress is absolutely key to then you can then formulate a plan around,
Yeah. I guess you need some strategies of how to resolve those issues, put something in place that will help you manage
yeah,
wherever triggers it, whether
yeah,
it's, I don't know, you overloaded at work, take an extra 10 minutes break every so often,
yeah,
go for a walk, or have a cup of tea or something like that, step
yeah.
away from the problem, and then feel a little bit more relaxed. Maybe just as simple as that, isn't it?
It could be any, whatever works for you,
Yeah.
whatever fits with your work or your life.
Mm-hmm.
um stress is something that I think, and burnout particularly, is something that creeps up on us,
Yeah.
almost like we
You
don't know,
don't know it's coming. Yeah.
and it can become normalized,
Mm-hmm.
certainly within some workplaces where people say, oh, everyone's stressed around here, everyone gets stressed, everyone burns out. Well,
Mm.
actually, that might be true, but that doesn't make it right.
That's right.
So I'd say the first step is really trying to understand and create a much better awareness for yourself around what is it for you
Mm.
that makes you feel stressed. It could be your workplace culture.
Mm.
If you work in a very hierarchical workplace, That can create stress. It could be you don't have any particular control over your job.
Mm.
You know, you're just told what to do and you have to get on with it. It could be that, you know, job insecurity. You know, certainly within the third sector, my experience this year, I was made redundant. You know, so
Yeah,
a
that's
lot
right.
of charities are downsizing as funding becomes more difficult to come by. Job insecurity, redundancies, that creates stress because, you know,
Definitely.
how we then respond to that. So if you've got a much better awareness around stress, this is what these are my triggers for me. So one of the things for me personally was having I always felt I wanted sort of clarity around my role. What was I what was I responsible for? What wasn't I responsible for? When I didn't get that, and there's been times where I just haven't had that in roles I've done, it just created stress for me because I didn't know where the boundaries were. You know,
Yeah, that's
but
right.
that's just me.
That's you,
That was
yeah.
what, you know, someone else may not even think about that. You know, it may not even
Exactly.
just, it's not going to bother them at all. So it's understanding for you, what are your triggers for stress?
I definitely myself, at least I can recall one time in my sort of recent life where I definitely felt burnout.
Yeah.
And you know, it's you sort of, yeah, it's that long process leading up to it. What are your personal and professional experience when it comes to stress and burnout?
So you know, you've got, for me, you have to go back nearly 20 years. I got my first sort of senior role within a big charity I was working in at the time, and I can see now, looking back with the benefit of all those years, that I was promoted and I wasn't adequately supported. So I went from a kind of middle sort of management role, which I was coping with fine, into this much bigger
Yeah.
role. And I think it probably took me about 18 months actually to really think I should be in this role now. I know what I'm doing. But for those 18 months were really hard, stressful, because I didn't really know what I was doing, if that
And
makes
you
sense.
obviously want to do well, so you've got that, you know, added stress of wanting
Yeah,
to perform well. But yeah, if you're not getting the right support, how
yeah,
are you supposed to be good at your job when no one
yeah,
explained what to do? Yeah.
yeah. Absolutely. And you know, another time for me where I felt acute, chronic stress actually over quite a period of time was I was working within a team that I'm quite introverted. Well, I am an introvert, but I was working in a team with lots of extroverts,
Okay.
and lovely people. Nothing against the people, but just the environment I was in
Yeah. Was overwhelming, I
was
would imagine.
overwhelming because everyone was bah, 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 bah. And I didn't really understand at the time what was happening. It wasn't until later you kind of think, actually, my stress there and the burnout was that sort of environment, the team dynamics, the leader of that team was very very extroverted and very he would chop and change quite a lot in terms of what we were doing, and you were always trying to second guess
Yep.
what he was going to say. It was quite hierarchical, and it for me it just wasn't a conducive environment.
It wasn't the right place.
You
Yeah.
know, and that went on for quite a long period of time, and at the end of that, I was I was pretty burnt out.
So how have you overcome those challenges?
I think for me, what's really helped me is as I say, is an awareness. That's the first step, is becoming aware of stress in general, but also what triggers stress for you.
And what happens to you?
You
Yeah.
know, what happens, what I'm feeling. I came out of that meeting feeling really anxious, and I just I just feel really, you know, I don't feel it's are you able then to think, okay, what actually is that? What's going on? It's because of the environment, because of the people, because of the role, because of the company. There's probably lots of different aspects to that. So that's the first thing is really exploring your own stress and what causes it. And the second sort of element to that is then, okay, what's the plan? You know, sitting down with a coach or with somebody else and really sort of trying to understand that and thinking, okay, what's the plan for me to manage the stress, or even better, how can I avoid the stress in the first place? You know, alleviate those symptoms of stress. And then the third element to that is then, okay, how do I then maintain? How do I maintain that? So understanding the awareness of stress, how stress relates to you, and then what's the plan for you to manage that and to grow, because acute stress, as I said earlier, is adaptive. You know, it's there for a reason. And we're humans, we're designed for acute stress. We're not designed for chronic stress.
That's right.
That goes on for weeks, months at a time, and it just depletes us, and we that's what leads to burnout.
So you've mentioned that, you know, when people can deal with stress and how to resolve or what sort of plan to put in place for themselves when they're feeling stressed, and obviously that leads to burnout, they can access support from a professional coach. And I know you know, you've got great experience of helping charity managers manage stress, and you're also a coach on a daily basis. So tell me, how do you support your customers to overcome stress?
I think when you're talking about working with an individual around stress, what's really important for me and the way I work is to really enable or support that individual to understand and become much more aware themselves of what their stress is and what's causing their stress.
So they reflect on that.
So my role as the coach is really to enable, support, and empower that person to understand their own situation in much greater clarity for them. You know, in my experience, a lot of stress it's an unconscious mechanism that we all have. If you can make that unconscious mechanism conscious, then you can then start to think about, okay, well, what changes do I need to make? You know, and that could be anything. That could be, well, actually, I've realized through this, I'm really, really unhappy working in this job. I've been talking for 3 years. I need to get another job. I need to get another job. And it could be the trigger. It could be the catalyst that enables you to do that. It could be, you know, making some changes to your lifestyle, making sure you get enough sleep. You know, making sure at the end of the day, you're giving yourself time to decompress. It could be anything as simple as keeping a journal. You know, there's lots and lots and lots of different ways that you can work with stress. But what's really important is that we were able to identify what's the best way for you.
So I guess with the coaching, sort of invites that customer to consider how they feel they can move forward best, and you know, it includes sort of some useful resources, like, you know, the journal, for example, or some other sort of tools that they could use, and obviously it supports them I guess consider some potential barriers as well. Like you say, it's not just recognizing what is the stress at the moment and what's the plan. You've got to be able to maintain it long term and adapt as well, because we're always going to be coming across some pressurized, stressful situations on a daily basis, isn't it?
Yeah. And you know, generally what we can't do is remove ourselves completely from stress.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
that's not life.
That's just not, you know, one of the things that really resonated with me when I was doing some reading about it is that I don't know whether you've heard of the acronym VUCA, VUCA. So VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So I know within the third sector, you know, certainly my experience over the last sort of 10 years was, you know, lots of change, lots of uncertainty, redundancies, restructures, job insecurity, you know, the list goes on. And when you're working within that environment over a long period of time, it's, for me, it was stressful.
That's right.
You know, because you can't plan. You know, you got mortgages, you got kids, you got, you know, you need the security, and well, I might be losing my job. You know, this funding's coming to an end and we can't replace it. Or what does that mean for me? You know, and
creates worries.
It creates worries, it creates uncertainty, it creates, you know, and when you experience that over a period of time, it builds up, and we're stressed over a long period of time. So being able to understand that, being able to then take a bit more, what coaching helps you do is to take some control, and you can take control through awareness.
Yeah.
So as a coach, I work with my clients to really, the way it's like pulling the curtain back a little bit, and you know, so what, you know, what's your mindset, you know, and quite often coaching can help you to actually change your mindset.
Yeah.
So, you know, it can help you change behaviors, it can help you move into action, it can help you really identify, this is where I am,
what
and this is
steps
where I want to
take?
be, you know, and how do I get there? So but you know, stress is something we live with, because that's the world we live in now, you know.
That's right.
Our brains evolved to, you know, react to life or death situations. You know, we don't have that now. You know, it might be, oh, I've got my boss has called me in for a meeting tomorrow morning, I'm not quite sure what he wants, or is this bad news? You know,
we're thinking, which
that kind of thing,
is
you
quite
know,
stressful.
that's stressful, but it's not life or death.
No.
But our brains don't necessarily differentiate between the two.
Don't recognize it. That's right. So how can our audience contact you if they wanted to have a chat about, you know, the subject you're passionate about, or about coaching?
I'm more than happy to just chat. Yeah. So I've got I'm on LinkedIn.
So Tony Adamson. So you've got your contact details on the screen, Tony. Obviously, I'm assuming you are very happy for our audience to contact you, to, you know, if they just wanted to have a chat about stress and burnout, or coaching, or linking up and just building that connection and the relationship with you.
Absolutely, more than happy at any point to just connect. And there's my details there. So it's Tony,
you're on LinkedIn as well.
tracoaching.co.uk, that's my number. And I'm also on LinkedIn. You can DM me, DM me through the LinkedIn platform.
Superb. Tony, thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure to speak to you. I've definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience did too. I you know, just wanted to thank you for being such a great member and such a great coach on the contract that I manage. And thank you to everyone for listening. If anyone's interested in joining us for the next Free SC member spotlight, please get in touch.
Good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Really great to chat to you. Thanks, Kasia.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.